Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Gunmu Martian Memory for the PlayStation. This is a game based on one of my favorite series of manga and anime, which was localized under the title Battle Angel Alita back in the 90s, and more recently got a film adaptation. Martian Memory is an action RPG that for the most part plays as a beat-em-up, and actually kinda reminds me a bit of Mega Man Legends. Whenever you defeat enemies, you earn credits that can be spent on all kinds of upgrades for Galley that do things like increasing your health, boosting your attack strength and defense, and grant you all kinds of devastating special attacks to use against enemies and bosses. There are also other segments of the game that change up the gameplay entirely, like playing a few rounds of Motorball, which is essentially like the deathmatch version of Roller Derby, and some boss battles take on more of a third-person shooter style. Regardless of where the gameplay goes though, Martian Memory is always challenging and fun with controls that are fairly easy to get the hang of. The graphics are pretty good for 1997 standards, and all of the characters and locations from the manga are represented in full. This is one game that's almost word for word and beat for beat totally faithful to the source material, which is sure to please fans. There is quite a lot of text in the game though, and there are no fan translations available at this time, so if you're going to play it, be prepared to do a little guesswork if you can't read Japanese. Personally, I love this game and think it's a true hidden gem in the PS1's library. It's Gunmu Martian Memory, one of the best manga to video game adaptations ever. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Umihara Kawase Shun for the PlayStation. This game is the sequel to the Super Famicom original, and it centers around a young girl who wants to grow up to be a sushi chef who is magically whisked away to a strange dimension where various fresh and saltwater creatures are roaming around, and the object of each stage is to make your way to a door that takes you to the next area. So this is basically a platformer, but the stage layouts are totally unlike any other platformer I've ever played. This is because more than just being able to jump from one platform to another, you have a fishing line that you can use to not only defeat enemies, but also latch onto ledges to pull yourself up, swing this way and that, and launch yourself into the air. The odd placement of the platforms means that you're going to need to work out the angles correctly if you want to progress through each stage. It's pretty tricky, sometimes frustratingly so, but it's also really fun and again, very unlike most other platformers. Plus, as you progress through the game, additional obstacles are added, like conveyor belts and moving platforms, and there's even the occasional boss battle as well, which aren't as tough as the platforming, but still fun nonetheless. Overall, this is actually one of my favorite 2D platformers on the PS1. It's fun, addictive, and it presents a decent challenge. The visuals are another aspect of this game that are really unique. It's a very colorful game, and the visual design definitely conveys the sense that you're in some weird alternate dimension where neighborhoods are suspended in midair and random objects fill the sky, and the soundtrack is super chill and helps to create a fairly relaxing gaming experience. If you're looking for a fun and unique 2D platformer on the PS1, Umihara Kawase Shun is a perfect choice. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Shiritsu Justice Gakuen Neketsu Seishun Nikki 2 for the PlayStation. This game is a semi-sequel to the original Rival Schools, which is one of my all-time favorite fighting games, and a series I'd love to see Capcom resurrect. And before I get to the differences, I will say that this game's gameplay is pretty much the exact same as the original. You still get the same incredibly fun tag team fighting action with ultra smooth controls and a fighting system that's essentially like a much faster playing Street Fighter EX. It's technically a 3D fighter, but the controls are the exact same as a 2D fighter, but you also have the ability to sidestep opponents, which you'd think wouldn't add that much to the gameplay, but you'd be wrong. Just being able to sidestep and counter in what's basically Street Fighter actually adds a lot of depth and strategy to an already amazing gameplay style. It's one of the best fighting games you can play on the PS1, and what you get with this game is a couple of new characters not featured in the original, and they are both fun to play as, plus you get all of the mini-games from the first game unlocked from the start, plus 2 new mini-games in the form of the 100-meter dash and a rhythm game dance-off. On top of that, there's also the school sim mode where you can create your own character and take them through a story mode, leveling them up and teaching them all kinds of different fighting techniques. There's even some Pocket Station compatibility, tournament and league modes. There's just a ton of content in this game, and the graphics and sound are exactly what you remember from the original. They are amazing, maybe the best looking and sounding fighter on the system. If you yearn for the Capcom fighting days of old and haven't played this game yet, then by any means necessary, get yourself a copy of Shiritsu Justice Gakuen Neketsu Seishun Nikki 2. It is awesome. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Asuka 120% Final Burning Fest for the PlayStation. As the name implies, this is the final game in a series that had a ton of installments on everything from the Sega Saturn and PC Engine to the FM Towns and even the Sharp X68000. And for my money, this is the best game in the entire series, and on the whole, I think it's a series that doesn't get nearly the credit that it deserves. Asuka 120% is a pioneer in the genre of the all-girl fighting game, featuring a roster entirely comprised of high school girls from various clubs competing for school supremacy and a nice bit of funding for their respective organizations, whether that be the chemistry club, tennis club, pro wrestling club, etc. And it's also one of the earliest 2D fighters that I can think of that's gameplay shifted the focus to a much faster, much more combo-oriented gameplay style, which is common in 2D fighters today. The gameplay is very fast, the controls are super smooth, and it's a ton of fun. A standout feature of the gameplay is the super combo meter. When it reaches 100%, you can pull off a devastating super combo, but if you can refrain from using it for long enough, you can build up to 120%, allowing you to launch an unlimited number of super combos for a limited amount of time. The result is a totally over-the-top combo fest filled with explosions as 2 players compete to see who can launch the most super combos in a single match. It's very fun and satisfying, and the icing on the cake is the super colorful and vibrant graphics, the awesome anime character designs, and a soundtrack that really kicks ass and drives the action forward top to bottom. This is and has always been a fighting series that deserves more love, and this, I would say, is the best of the bunch. It's Asuka 120% Final Burning Fest, and it's a damn fine 2D fighter. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Kotoko Postin N for the PlayStation. This is a game that answers a very vital question of how people are going to receive their newspapers in the future when humanity has colonized space. The answer is that we will have robot newspaper delivery people who can work in 0G, which is the entire point of this game. In Kotoko Postin N, you play as Akane, who is a newspaper delivery girl going from neighborhood to neighborhood in outer space, delivering papers and collecting money. How you do this is incredibly simple. The gameplay is very similar to a classic arcade game called On the Ball. Instead of controlling Akane, you control the screen, rotating it left and right to steer her in whatever direction you like. She'll run and float all around the screen, and in each stage, there are a number of post boxes you have to hit to deliver newspapers, and once you've delivered them all, you have to race to the exit before time runs out. There are also bonus items scattered around each stage like coins and cat banks that give you point bonuses and little clocks that can extend your time by 10 seconds, which really come in handy because as you progress through the game, more and more obstacles are introduced that reduce your time every time you hit them. So essentially all you do in this game is move the screen around, which only requires 2 buttons to do. It's so simple that this could easily have been a mobile game if it had been released a decade later, but despite its simplicity, or maybe because of it, this is a very fun and addictive game that was obviously made on a very low budget, but nevertheless has some pretty charming graphics with a lot of color and fun character designs and a great soundtrack to top things off. If you're in the market for a quirky little import gem for the PS1, Kotoko Postin N will do just fine. It's a lot of fun. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Mad Stalker Full Metal Force for the PlayStation. This is a game that was originally released on the Sharp X68000 and was released on a bunch of different consoles, but not a single port was ever released outside of Japan, which is a shame, because this is an awesome beat-em-up. It was developed by Fill-In Cafe and published by FamilySoft, which is the same combination behind most of the games in the Asuka 120% series, which I've already featured, so you know its quality. And this game, despite being a beat-em-up, actually controls and plays a lot like an Asuka game. There's even a one-on-one fighting mode that lets you not only play as the Hound Dog mech, the central figure of the game, but all of the boss characters as well. In the single player mode, you take the Hound Dog through stage after stage of giant robot battling action, which all takes place on a single plane, so it's a lot more like X-Men Mutant Apocalypse than Final Fight, for example. So it plays like a 2D fighter crossed with a side-scrolling beat-em-up, which I love because it means that in addition to the high-speed gameplay that lets you pull off some big combos using a combination of 3 attack buttons and a dash button, you can also pull off some Street Fighter style special attacks to bust out your machine guns and wrist blades, and you also have a super combo meter that lets you launch a bunch of super attacks for a brief period, again just like Asuka 120%. So the gameplay is solid and very fun, with the only drawback being that the multiplayer is only available in the Versus mode. The visuals are pretty good, the robot designs themselves are great, and remind me a bit of Appleseed actually, and the soundtrack is totally awesome. In the market for a great beat-em-up for your PS1, Mad Stalker Full Metal Force is one of the best. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Ingacho for the PlayStation. This is a game that was released in 1999, and it was brought to us by the fine folks at NAC, the Nihon Application Corporation, which sounds like the kind of company that makes stationery and not video games about asses with wings that uncork and take a giant dump on you, but here we are. In this game, you play as a young boy who comes home crying one day, and his dad, being the loving gentleman that he is, throws his son into some awful place filled with disgusting creatures in order to toughen him up. So this is a puzzle game where you play as the boy named Sanzuki, and you are tasked with navigating him from the starting point of a board to the exit while avoiding the creatures that inhabit each board. The trick is that each creature moves in different patterns in response to your movement. So for example, one of the monsters mirrors all of your movements, one will move in the opposite direction, and the others move in various other directions. As the game starts, this isn't really such a tall order, but don't be lulled into a false sense of security, because this eventually becomes a brutally difficult puzzle game as multiple monsters are added to each board, and you have to choose your movements very carefully, as stepping on the same square as one of the creatures will get you drenched in saliva, covered in crap, and dripping With snot, it's especially gross and especially fun at the same time. And after completing a succession of levels, you play a boss battle against Sanzuki's father, where you try to maneuver the monsters so they walk into your opponent. This is an all-around fun and addictive puzzle game that also has that weird Japanese charm to it that I like so much. Plus, it's a nice looking game with some great 2D graphics and weird but also comical character designs and a soundtrack that complements the oddball nature of the game very well. Need a good PS1 puzzle game to add to your collection and keep you entertained? Check out Ingacho, it's awesome. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Poppin Tanks for the PlayStation. This is a 1999 release that was developed by Symbio Systems and published by Enix, and it features characters, vehicles, and environments designed by famed manga artist Mine Yoshizaki, who is best known for creating Sergeant Frog, Arcade Gamer Fubuki, and for being the art director on the Otamedius series, so get ready for some very colorful and wacky anime action. This game, in a nutshell, is a car combat game of sorts, where two players are dropped onto a 3D battlefield and unload on each other with all the fury of 1,000 waves until one of them explodes into a fiery wreckage. What sets this game apart from other games in the genre is that A, it's purely a one-on-one game as opposed to battle royale car combat games like Twisted Metal and Vigilante 8, and B, instead of playing as plain old cars, you're driving what the game refers to as petite tanks, which look like little RC tanks, but they are in fact full-sized and driven by a human character, and the designs of some of them actually make me think of Dominion Tank Police. Each tank has a different design, and they all have unique stats like speed, handling, and overall firepower. They each come equipped with machine guns, missiles, and a limited supply of super attacks, and each tank has its own unique super attack that range from direct and powerful attacks to ones that are a little trickier to dodge, but maybe not quite as powerful. Plus, if all else fails, you can hop on the enemy tank Mario style, and the various buildings in each stage are destructible and contain health power-ups and extra super bombs, and you can even create your own tank from over 300 different individual parts. Overall, this is an extremely fun game with great controls and action-packed gameplay, but I do think it could have benefited from having more tanks on the field at one time, but as it stands, it's a great playing game with awesome, colorful graphics, great art direction, and a poppy, fun soundtrack that kicks things up a notch. Looking for a fun game for the PS1 with plenty of pastel colors and explosions? Check out Poppin Tanks, it's great. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Rakugaki Showtime for the PlayStation. This is a 1999 release that's a combined effort between two of my favorite game companies, those being Enix, the publishers of the Dragon Quest series, who also served as the publisher on this game, and it was developed by Treasure, a company known for taking fairly generic gameplay styles like shoot-em-ups and beat-em-ups and adding some unique gameplay mechanics to make them feel fresh again. With this game, you could describe it as an arena combat game that allows for up to 4 players at a time, but as you might expect, it's far from being just a predictable fighting game. You're dropped into a fully 3D fighting arena, but you're playing as 2-dimensional characters, and the whole game has a hand-drawn with crayon graphic style. The gist of the gameplay is that you'll be running all around the arena, picking up various objects like boulders, bombs, and rockets to lob at your opponents, kind of like a free-for-all game of dodgeball, where you're trying to blow each other up, and the main weapon you're going to want to get your hands on is the Smile Ball. Every time it's thrown at someone, it gradually goes from happy to angry, and when it's glowing and flashing, the first person to pick it up gets to use it to launch a devastating super attack that can target one or all of your opponents. This makes for a fast and frantic gameplay experience with every man, woman, and alien for himself. It's an extremely fun and unique gameplay style, and if you can get a few friends together, then you're really in for a good time. Plus, the graphics are beautiful. I love the cartoony anime art style, and the character designs are great, and you get a great soundtrack as well, which is poppy and fun. So all things considered, Rakugaki Showtime is exactly what you'd expect from the combination of Treasure and Enix. It's awesome, and I highly recommend giving it a try. Hey everybody, Jim here with your daily dose of Japanese gaming goodness. It is the import game of the day, and today's game is Pepsi Man for the PlayStation. This is a 1999 release developed and published by Kindle Imagine Development, and it's based on a quirky Pepsi mascot that was only used in Japan, but oddly enough, all of the commercials were set in the United States and are 100% in English, and all of the dialogue in the game is in English as well. The general premise of the commercials and subsequently the game is that there are people in this world who don't have access to Pepsi, and as a result, their lives suck. But never fear, Pepsi Man is here with an unlimited supply of that sweet, sweet Pepsi goodness. Each of the game's 4 sections has the titular hero going from San Francisco to New York to Texas and the aptly named Pepsi City to deliver unto the people the drink they so desperately crave so that they'll stop rioting and generally just losing their minds. You essentially just run from point A to point B, collecting cans of Pepsi and dodging obstacles. You'll jump over barricades, crash through windows, slide under construction equipment, and leap over huge gaps, all while picking up as many cans as possible and trying to beat the clock. You can only make so many mistakes before you fail the stage, but by collecting more cans, you can restore Pepsi Man's health, which is totally unrealistic because if you drank as much Pepsi as this guy, you wouldn't miraculously improve your health. You'd probably just get a kidney stone, but for what it is, this is actually pretty fun. It's easy to pick up and play, and it presents a decent challenge, at least at first. Once you learn the stages, you can blow through this game in about 30 minutes or so. Plus, you get a bunch of remixes of the Pepsi Man theme song while you play, and you're treated to cutscenes of a Pepsi-obsessed fat guy who encourages you to keep playing, and of course to keep chugging Pepsi. And if that doesn't make you want to play Pepsi Man, you must be a Coca-Cola fan.